I guess being the youngest of 6 kids, it's no surprise that I had a fascination with other people. And certainly when I did my psychology degree, the behaviour of people really interested me. And so as I continued on that degree, I was quite frustrated that, you know, I wasn't really meeting as many people and understanding. It was a lot about statistics and, you know, looking at group data and things like that. I wanted to get out into the real world and meet people and find out what they did to create success in their life. And so I guess for the last 10 years, one of the tools that I've used around people's God-given equipment or their complete talent, if they're working where their strengths are, is to use profiling. And I just wanted to take some time to reflect on some of the profiles that I have really found for myself that have given me the greatest edge within business. And that's not just business for myself, but in educating other people in business and helping them to get greater results than their competitors. And I guess they come in layers. Okay, so one of the things that we learn a lot, and I don't know whoever first talked about the identity iceberg, because I've read it in so many success books, I would never be able to trace back to who actually first came up with the concept that in an iceberg, only 10% sticks out the top and 90% is underneath. Certainly I first heard that at my flight centre training, and then it was repeated when I was an action coach, and it's been repeated in Jack Canfield's material. So, you know, obviously we all get that an iceberg is a great analogy for our profiles, because our behaviour is what pokes out the top. But generally our behaviour is speaking volumes of what's happening underneath the surface. And so I want to start from underneath the surface, because for me, if we can get the foundational principles or your identity really clear, those things don't shift too much over time. And what I mean by that is, you know, when Carl Jung was doing his work with Freud, they really disagreed about what makes up people's behaviour or personalities. Okay, so there had been a lot of studies that had done dated back to Hippocrates in 1300s, that they could find people on the battlefield, and based on the level of stress that they had encountered in battle, their body functioned in different ways. And so that's where they came up with the 4 basic modalities of phlegmatic and choleric and melancholy and sanguine. Okay, so these 4 were how your body actually functions in and around pressure. And so we are all made differently, and of course you are unique. However, there are certain indicators that we can utilise to be able to move you into a profile place that sits well and makes you feel like you're at home. When you're surrounded by other people, you tend to synergise with them faster because they're like you, and like tends to attract like. And so profile isn't about what you are, profiling is about what you're not. Because if we all just went around with the people that we were like, we would cut out about 75% of the population. And for me, being empowered means that I can appreciate and I can work with all different types of people in different talents, in different fields, and be able to get an effective result as a leader. And that's why this is a really important reflection, and I've placed it as number 3 out of my 10 top reflections. And so with profiling, when we think about our identities of who we are, the best profiles that I've used are that Personality Plus to find from Florence Littauer. Find out which one you are in terms of the sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic or melancholy. I'm not going to go into all of the profiles today, I'm just going to highlight them so that you can understand they exist, and then we can help you to move down that path if you've not yet been down this path before. The next one that I'd recommend, and you can do this online and it's free, is called a Myers-Briggs indicator. This is personality testing that's used for recruitment all across the world. Very impressive stuff. And it can basically let us know on indicators where we sit in terms of extroverted or introverted, whether we're perceiving or judging, intuitive or sensory, you know, so it basically will give you whether you're a feeling person and help you to understand with different roles that you'll be performing what is best suited for you. And as I said, unless you have a major life shift, these things don't change too much over your lifetime, because they are how you're wired, hardwired as such, which is, I guess, where the original psychologists were coming from, that it was very much about nature, not about nurture. And yet now we understand, with a lot of our Gestalt thinking, that it's holistic. You know, you can rear two twins, they can be brought up in exactly the same household and have totally different attributes. So how does that happen? If they have the same parents, they had the same experience, they wore the same clothes, they've done all sorts of experiments separating identical twins and seeing how different they are. So what we recognise now is, as we move up that spectrum of iceberg, we start to recognise that we have different value sets. And I first came across a values hierarchy with the On Purpose person. There was a gentleman named Edward Gifford in Brisbane who was running this for all of the coaches and educating us on these values hierarchy. Absolutely recommend that you get a hold of this process and talk to a coach about getting that done. Your values hierarchy will really help you to see how you make decisions based on what's most important to you. And so if somebody has family at the top of their values hierarchy and their spouse has vocational or finance on the top of their values hierarchy, then when they're talking through a different filter. And so for a man that's going out working and saying, but I'm doing this for my family, he's speaking from the fact that finance provides a great life for his family. And he's congruent in saying that, where his spouse might say, but you never spend any time with us, we never see you, you're gone from 6 in the morning till midnight. And he would be saying, yeah, because you need this lifestyle. So both people are having conflict or stress, but they're both congruent with their value sets. They just haven't been educated with how that shifts our behaviour. So our values hierarchy is certainly a middle layer, but then we have skill. Okay, so much of our behaviour is based on not just our beliefs about our skill, but our actual abilities and competency levels. And so how do you learn? What's the process of how you learn? How fast are you at learning? You know, what do you believe to be true about yourself? And so when we're looking at our beliefs or our skill level, then certainly for me, I've used a lot of the Dan Millman profiling stuff, your values, your life purpose indicators, because we can get a good snapshot, just like an anagram, about what are our issues and where are areas that we need to get better equipped in our life and more skilled up to be able to approach any challenge and then push through. And so working with this stuff, what I found with clients is, although I might see that the solution is very easy, it's a big deal for them, a big deal. And I guess the funniest example is, so often for me, my biggest fear comes around areas that for Tracy are very simple. So, you know, sending out an email with an attachment that has to be scanned. That was a big deal for me because I didn't understand how to do that. Receipting a credit card if someone paid, you know, things that people say, how could that be holding you back in business? But it was holding me back. And yet for her it'd take 2 or 3 minutes, but it might take me a week to ask. You know, so my skills or the ability that I had to be able to expand with my competency level was because of my stubborn nature, because of my feeling that I was needy, and I hated to be needy. I hated to ask for help. That was a trait that I had, or a limiting belief that I had to get over in order to experience greater results. And so that's what pops out the top. When we finally get out the top of our iceberg, we have our actions and decisions that come across as our general behaviour. And here we use DISC profiling. And I do it very differently to a lot of people. So I really reflect on somebody as a vibration. When you walk into the room, you feel them. Okay, you feel what their energy's like. And for some of us, when we walk into a room, it's like turning on Nova. It's as a radio station or a frequency, it's very high level frequency, it's very urgent, high beat, that type of thing. And for some of us, we walk into a room and it's more like 4BC. Or it's more like 97.3 playing the 80s hits, or it's a different frequency. And so when you understand your frequency, then we match your behaviours to your frequency and we build a dream team around that. And when we put all these profiles together, we call it Profiles Unleashed. And to be honest, when we have done this, we've done this with groups of 30 or 50 people, and we build their profiles on top of each other. And it's very rare for any of those people to be in the same group for 6 or 7 of the indicators. Okay, and the reason we started doing that was to try to help people to see they're not a branded thing. They're not just a high D, or they're not just an ENFP, or they're not just an ISTQ, or whatever it is. You know, they didn't feel that they were being branded. But why the profiling in the first place? And that's really where the reflection comes in. The greatest result that I've achieved in terms of business coaching and wealth coaching is Roger Hamilton's wealth dynamic. And we're huge advocates of that at Leisure Seekers, mostly because when we first heard Roger come out to Australia, it was completely different to anything I'd experienced. He is actively travelling around the world, meeting millionaires, profiling them, and compiling this information to create a 7 or 8 point strategy for each wealth dynamic. And you know, we didn't blindly just follow, we tested and measured it. And certainly for our clients that were achieving 70 times their net worth in the following 12 months, we became very quick advocates of this profiling system. And so I guess with reflecting about profiles and which ones to do, I really recommend those ones. I believe that once you understand what the reading program is for you that's unique in business, you can create a really strong platform of wealth and a team around you. Once we've got that indicator, we can actually start to work on the business coaching aspect of things and maximize your output, which creates profit. And once you've got profit, you can buy back time, which then we move into life coaching. So our order of things at Leisure Seekers is wealth coaching, business coaching, then get a life. Okay, so that's the way that we have tended to focus, and we seem to be getting the greatest results working in that process. So my third reflection is, what wealth dynamic are you? How do you maximize that game? And what are your plans for the future?